So how do you know if you need more parenting and better parenting techniques, or if you need anger therapy, or if you need something else? If you get triggered by your kids and maybe you're yelling or you're people pleasing, like no boundaries, you're trying to be nice, nice, nice 1,000 times, they're not listening, or you're shutting down and freezing when it becomes too much and overwhelming and too much noise, too much clinginess, or they hit or hurt you physically. How do you know what specifically you need so that you don't waste your precious time and money in getting stuff that doesn't work? Well, let's talk about that. Welcome to the next episode of the Zen Supermom Podcast. Hi, I'm Alena. I call myself a mommy tantrum specialist because I used to be specialist at yelling at my daughters and having tantrums like a little child whenever it was too much for me. I kept asking nicely 1,000 times. She was not listening, so then I had to start yelling, and then I was feeling guilty, and then I was like crying and apologizing to her, and then we end up hugging it out on the floor like two little kids. Like, she was scared because I yelled. I was scared because I was like, what the heck is that? Like, where's that monster in me coming up? Even like, where from? And please, somebody help me, because I was doing it all. I was doing parenting techniques. I was trying to figure out, like, I would even go to a therapy, but I had a happy childhood. So what would I talk in the therapy about? Like, what do I have to complain about? That would be very ungrateful of me. So what the heck is going on? So this episode for moms who feel in a similar way, like me. And let's discern what type of help you might need. Because there's so much these days. There's so much online. The parenting space became so noisy because, especially now at the times of AI, like, anybody can sell anything, even if like they don't have any experience. There are so many scammers. So how do you know who's real? And how do you choose the right type of help? Okay, so first of all, look at it. What is your challenge? How often are you losing your patience or reacting in a way that you regret? On a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being I would call it sometimes like momzilla. This is what I used to be. Like, no matter how long you keep it patient and you try to be calm, you do end up yelling, or you're shutting down or freezing, or you're keeping that anger inside. You don't maybe yell it out at anybody, but you're feeling inside, you're feeling very angry. Okay, so that would be one side of the spectrum, all the way to 10 being what I called perfectly imperfect Zen Supermom. That's how I feel right now. Am I like 1,000 perfect? No, I'm not. Do I feel stressed out sometimes? Like, do I push my daughter a little bit sometimes when it's like too much? Yeah, but I never yell anymore. I don't put any of my beep on her, none of my own emotional baggage. And whenever I sit down to be with her, I'm fully present. I'm not counting to-do lists and measuring time in my head. I'm fully paying attention and I'm connected to her. Okay, and I can see the difference on her. That's what Zen Supermom is. Okay, so how do you measure on the scale from 1 to 10 between Momzilla and a Zen Supermom? Do your self-assessment right now. Okay, that's going to give you a first indication. If you're 10 out of 10, perfectly imperfect, but you never lose your cool, not to the point that you would have to yell or damage your child in any way, then you're actually perfect. Congratulations. Then all you need, definitely, parenting techniques are useful in terms of checking like what is going on and understanding your child and their challenges from their perspective. Okay. But the closer you are to the 1 out of 10, like the closer you are to, the more often you're losing your patience, the more often your kids, or it might be even your partner or your mom, they are making you lose your patience and you're feeling any kind of negative emotion whenever they have a tantrum. That's an indication that parenting techniques are actually not going to help you, because there's something else going on. And my apologies for the sound, but I really have to do this podcast episode because they've been drilling for the last 2 days. So I hope it will be still okay for you, the experience of listening to me, even with my neighbors drilling. But this is the point where I would invite you to self-assess and check really how often do you feel reactions. And that's with or without yelling, but how often do you feel that anger inside of you? Anger, disappointment, frustration. It might be even depression. Sometimes it's on the two extremes. It might be either that like burnout, stress, explosions, or it might also be the shutdown feelings, the depression. You already checked out basically. And it might be going up to the point of like having suicidal thoughts. Like my kids are better off without me. I'm checking out. I'm getting numb. At that point, it might be also going into addictions that you're reaching out for what I call crutches, like alcohol, shopping, excessive shopping, yeah, or excessive use of social media or watching Netflix. You're just trying to numb yourself because you are not feeling good in your life or where that is. You're not even recognizing yourself, like, who am I even? I lost myself in motherhood and this new stage of my life. I don't recognize myself anymore. I don't love my life at all. And so you're numbing it out by like zooming, escaping in your mind because you cannot escape physically. So you're escaping here in your head. Yeah. So the more often you feel this way, the more it's an indication this is not about the kids. Forget about parenting techniques. Stop wasting your time and start looking inside. At this point, people ask me about therapy because there are lots of therapy methods out there. There's classic talk therapy, aka like counseling. There's like couples counseling if it's your partner who's making you lose your stuff the most often and who's like the relationship is draining your energy. It's painful. There is EMDR, CBT, EFT. There are so many different techniques. And this is where I need you to, where you can, invitation, I don't need you to do anything, but this is my invitation for you to continue your assessment and ask yourself the questions. How have I been even before the kids? Were there any difficult situations? Were there any struggles already before? Yes or no? If you grew up in tough conditions where there was a trauma, you were abandoned, you were hurt, there was physical or emotional violence, there was too much control and too strict parents, and you grew up being like a super hyperachiever, or there was too much control and it resulted in you having like eating disorders. Yeah. What was going on in your childhood? If there are any points that you can identify that were deeply hurtful and that were a challenge already before you became a mom, then you have probably already done some kind of therapy. So then check, how did that work? Not only if that old pain has got cleaned up, which usually if you were going just for a classic talk therapy, maybe it gave you some understanding, it gave you some peace in terms of like knowing it was not your fault. But are you still feeling that pain? Yes or not? Or yes or no? Are you still feeling the impact of that today? Okay, that's what you need to look at. And then there will be people who will tell me, well, I don't remember anything from my childhood. Like as if there was a blank wall. I don't see anything behind it. I don't have any memories before I was 12 or 13. Okay, so if that's your case, then first of all, I need you to know it's normal not to remember anything unless it was like there was deep emotional charge to the experience. It's normal not to remember anything before you were 5 or 6. Okay, because the capacity of the brain to keep and store long-term memory, it develops over time, and before the age 3, 4, often even 5, it doesn't, like the brain is not capable unless it was like a highly charged emotional experience. Then the brain and especially your body will remember. Okay, so don't put too much pressure on yourself in terms of remembering, but do go back to your childhood. Do you have any memories? Or do you have any suspicion that maybe there was some kind of pain going on, there was a problem, and your mind is purposely keeping it locked so that you don't get triggered by that pain anymore? So is that the case? Is that possible that this is the case? Is there a suspicion? Are you suspecting somebody hurt you and that's why your mind is blank? Okay, because this might be the case as well. And if you do have a suspicion like this, then I would invite you to do an assessment, to do a trauma assessment, and we will talk about it, like how or where and what it includes, because this is sometimes the case that it links to how you show up for your kids as well. And that the parental pressure, the time pressure, the stress, the fact that you cannot escape, the fact that you have to go because you have to be there for your kids. You cannot just take a day off because like you need to rest and recharge and regulate your emotional system, your nervous system. That contributes to anything that was already stored in your nervous system before, that was not processed, any old pain and trauma that was pushed away. It will come back to the surface by that external pressure you're now experiencing from the outside by being a mom and having much more full schedule. Okay? That's the second scenario. So first scenario was, you already know there was a trauma, there was pain in your childhood. Second scenario, you have no idea because it's blank. Third possibility is people like me who had a happy childhood. Okay? And that's actually the most difficult case. Because then you're completely clueless. Thinking for all these people who were hurt as kids, it makes perfect sense that they are still struggling, but I have no reason to complain. I have no reason to behave this unacceptable way because I had a happy childhood. And yes, my mom yelled at me, or yes, my dad was absent, or yes, my parents got divorced, or yes, in my culture was super strict and demanding and emotionally cold and distant, but I had a happy childhood. I have nothing. What would I complain about? I'm grateful to my parents, and I don't even want to go back to my childhood and start fishing for things because that would make me feel so ungrateful. And my parents don't deserve that. They just deserve my appreciation and love for how much they sacrificed for me and how amazing they were. That's why this third scenario is actually the most difficult to crack and to find out where it's coming from, because some people get stuck at this point of feeling guilty for even going there on the hunt to the past. Okay. So if that was your case, if you had a happy childhood, then my best self-assessment that I can offer to you is to go and do an exercise. Think back the last time your negative emotions got triggered, that you reacted in the end. Your reaction was out of control, disproportionate, over the top compared to what your kid did. Think about the last time that happened. Yeah. So for example, for me, it was my daughter would drop something on the floor or made a mess with the food, or she was being too playful, putting on her coat, jacket when we were going out. And even though I didn't even have any place to go. I didn't even have the excuse of the time pressure, but I was just oh my goodness. Again, I was so, So think back to the time when you got you felt this. And rewind that moment just before you overreacted. What was going through your head in that moment? What were you telling yourself in your head about the situation, about your kid, about your position? Because for me, it was usually I'm not respected. She doesn't listen to me. I'm a bad mom. Why am I getting angry because she's doing nothing? Why cannot she not listen? I'm doing so much for her already, and she cannot do this one simple thing put on her coat. Come on, why did she put it on the floor? Because now it's up to me. You have no idea how much I'm doing for you, and you're disrespecting me this way. You're just putting more pressure on me, and I will need to work even more. And how dare you? All of these stories in your head. Go through it without any logical brain censoring, because what often happens, those moms, they will come to me and they will say, yeah, but I understand, she's just a kid, and I understand because they were hungry or they were tired, they missed me the whole day, so they didn't do it on purpose. I'm yeah, logically, of course, we understand each other as adults, of course, yeah, you read those parenting books, you know why your kid did it, but how did you feel in that moment? That was not logical adult behavior at all. There's a reason why you overreact like a child. And so this story in your head is a clue. Because for me, just as I said it, I felt disrespected, I felt not heard, and I felt not good enough. I felt no matter how much I'm trying, people are not seeing it. And until they do, and until they appreciate me for how much I'm doing, I will never feel good enough. That was the baseline of my nervous system that I was able to understand only through a specialized trauma therapy. That was not a shock therapy because I didn't have a shock trauma to work through, but it's a developmental therapy, which means developmental, like paper cuts that develop with you throughout your entire childhood. Little situations here and there that cut you over and over and over and over again in a similar place. And for me, it was I didn't feel loved for who I am. I felt like I always had to overachieve, over-deliver, never rest or be lazy or think about myself or express my needs, because I always had to be there for others. I always have to be smiling, saying yes, and being helpful before people even asked me for anything. I always had to be there for them. And that was getting me the attention and approval and very conditioned love from my parents. And that was the thing. That was the little girl in me who felt like this is not fair. There was a part of me who, of course, until today, I'm super grateful for my parents. Like, that has nothing to do with my parents in this way. I don't blame them for anything. I completely understand that they had only the best intentions and they did an amazing job. I'm beyond grateful every day. And also, there was until today, well, until 5 years ago when I cleaned it up, there was a part of me that was still like that 4 or 5-year-old girl who knew it was not okay. I deserved to be loved for who I was. I knew there was a part of me who felt it's not fair. It's not fair to condition, like to blame me and judge me for making mistakes. Shouldn't I be allowed? It's not fair that I should care for everybody else and not be able to say what I need. It's not fair that I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling disappointed, I'm feeling there's injustice between me and my brother, and that I was shut down. There was part of me who knew it was not okay, and she felt sad for not feeling heard and being understood for who I was, for having to always prove how hard I'm trying and always having to like change, because unless I did, I was not worthy. I was blamed not good enough. Okay, and that part of me was hurt. And that's what you can hear often, like in the psychology space. That's what they often refer to as the inner child. And then the shadow, because then when the inner child is not happy, then it starts acting out like a kid who's not happy, having tantrums. And that's what people often call like the shadow. And in psychology, that's considered like that's the dark side. That's the monster in you should be ashamed of, because how dare you being the adult and parent, how dare you having any childish emotions when you're jealous of your kids, when they get so much and you put them through so many birthday parties, you give them so many gifts, you give them so much of your time and attention that you never got growing up, and now you're jealous of them. How dare you? You should be ashamed. That's your shadow side. Screw that. No, there's a perfectly valid explanation for that. It's a completely normal psychological process. If you're listening to Dr. Gabor Mate, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's been already proven. There's nothing to be ashamed of, but it is something to be cleaned up. And this is where I go back to my initial promise in this podcast episode to help you understand what you need when. If you had a happy childhood and yet there's this little kid jumping up outside at your partner or at your own kids whenever you're not happy, that's an indication of a developmental childhood trauma, and that needs to be healed so that it calms down and it integrates, not as a shadow to be scared of, but as something that you actually can hold together and you can become one again. It's not like this is my inner child shadow and this is me, the adult self I can be proud of. No, you're one. There is this healing and integration that needs to happen. And that's not going to happen through classic talk therapy, EMDR, CBT, hypnotherapy, EFT, IFS, not even. You need to work with a specialized therapist who can handle and who can help you clean up. Developmental intergenerational, because by the way, it didn't show up out of nowhere. It is coming, it's been dripping from generation to generation. And it needs to be dealt with through specific techniques. Yeah. CBT, EMDR, talk therapy, hypnotherapy, they are amazing techniques. I'm not talking down on them. I have lots of colleagues who are practicing these techniques and they are having lots of success with different kinds of challenges, not with this one. These techniques are not designed to heal generational developmental childhood trauma. Okay. And I have more podcast episodes about that. I have podcast episodes explaining specifically how that plays up in morning rush, in exhausting bedtime, like routines when kids are not listening. I have episodes explaining how that links to ADHD, because ADHD is not a disease or illness. It is very often also a result of developmental trauma when the brain was too panicking because you couldn't fight, you couldn't run away, and you had to be stuck in a stressful situation. So your brain checked out. It learned how to zoom out. And so that's why it's difficult to focus until like these days. Yeah. So and Gabor Mate is explaining that beautifully as well, because he was diagnosed with ADD himself. So I have podcast episodes explaining how to deal with sibling jealousy, with kids hitting you, with kids not wanting to eat and fighting for control and power struggles. I have podcast episodes on all of this, and everywhere in each of them, I explain specifically, trying to help you to self-assess if there is this kind of childhood pain. And if you get triggered by the word trauma, you can call it pain, you can call it a pattern, childhood pattern still in your nervous system that needs to get addressed. Because if that's the case, then I can already tell you right now, no amount of parenting techniques or talking therapy will ever help you. I had parents who are wasting years on social media with different parenting courses. I had people who spent 20 years in talk therapy, on antidepressant medication, ADHD medication, you name it. Burnout, in specific burnout therapies or anger therapies, none of that really helped them. Not fully, not completely. Because the moment the pressure increases in their life again, they are right back and even worse. Okay? So that's why I wanted to do this kind of like self-assessment for you. Yeah? This was for the moms, like the third type, for moms like me who had a happy childhood. If you already had some severe trauma in your childhood and your talk therapy or whatever method you're using, it's not working for you, that's also a point of concern. Yeah. Because we've had success applying the method that I developed, even on shock trauma. I worked with sexual abuse victims, survivors. I worked with them through a few sessions, and again, using the same system. They're okay. And you have those episodes, podcast episodes with them when they share it. So don't believe me, hear them say that. Yeah. Even the trauma, if like for the second case, the moms whose memory got blocked and who are like, I don't know, I'm suspecting something might have happened, maybe not, I have no idea. We help these moms too, because your body remembers. Even for situations and traumas that happened before you were even 3 years old, so there's no way how your brain could remember, there will be no visual memory, but your body remembers, because there will be a chemical imprint of the stress hormones, of the panic, of the fear, of the disgust, of the pain that got imprinted in your system. It is still stored somewhere. That's, by the way, again, from psychoneuroimmunology, which is a combined interdisciplinary field that's connecting all of these pieces together to dig out the trauma from the body. That's why you have so many somatic therapists out there these days. But what I'm inviting you to check, and this is the part that you can already self-assess, is really follow the signs. Follow the current signs of your current struggle. Check what's the story underneath. So what is it that you're telling yourself when that's happening? And then look for specialized help. Okay? Because in all of these cases, parenting techniques, not going to help. Classic therapy, not going to help. Okay? So that will be my invitation for you. And if you want to go further with me and my team and check what my method is, I have an invitation for you. I'm bringing back mommy tantrum training, which I used to do for 2-3 years, almost every week live, until I got like so tired of it. I'm like, by now, everybody knows, like they must know, right? Like I had more than 20,000 people on these trainings. So I'm like, by now, the world already knows what developmental trauma is and what a like hidden challenge it is, because nobody knew about it before. So I thought, well, by now, it's already out there. So I stopped doing it. And now I just keep getting questions about it, like more and more, and people want it back. So I'm bringing it back. It's free. So this is not like a sales announcement. I'm not selling you anything. It's free. It's live. And the replay will be available for free again for 7 days. So if that's a priority for you to dig out the roots of your anger and go a little bit deeper with me, do more, like few more exercises, few more assessments, then that's what the mommy tantrum training is for. Okay, I'm not promising that after 1 hour training you will never yell at your kids again. By the way, whomever promises that to you, they are lying. So that's one of those scammers. Run away. I'm not promising that. I'm making realistic commitments to you. What you are going to walk away with is much more clarity on what is really going on. And that alone will then give you the information you need for taking the next steps and finding the right specialist for you, so that you make sure you do not waste your precious time or money in doing something that's not going to help you. And that you, as soon as possible, become the calm, grounded, unconditionally loving mom you wish you had growing up. Because that's why we are here, right? We are here for the kids. We want to honor their spirit. I have so many moms who are telling me, like, I get it. My daughter, she's so passionate and strong-willed, and I want to encourage that in her because it's great. They squished me when I was little. They blamed me for being too much. And so I want her to have that passion, but I'm struggling because it's like I cannot get anything done with her and she's ruling the home. Or then I have parents who tell me, my boy, he's so sensitive, and so he's being bullied at school because he's so like in tune with his emotions and he's so sweet. He would never harm anybody. But then like you get triggered by that on his behalf. And you get triggered by that because whenever it becomes too much for him, he does turn and maybe he does jump up. Right? And he does hurt his siblings maybe out of his pain. So then he's being bullied at school, but then he becomes the bully at home towards his siblings or towards you because he is carrying so much pain that he's like throwing it at you. And then what do you do with those parenting techniques? How do you apply parenting techniques to that, right? So that's why I'm always telling the parents, whatever is going on with your kids, you first need to clean up your reaction to it so that we as parents are the model of the resiliency, of the authenticity, of the courage, and that like you living your purpose, you living your life in a way that you want your kids to live one day. Not that they should get the dream job that you had once yourself, so now you live through them and you put all of these expectations and pressure on you so that they do better and they can live their dreams because you never could. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about modeling that emotional strength that you want them to have. No amount of you telling them you're so smart, you're so beautiful, you can do anything, like you can make your dreams come true. No amount of you telling them will ever have any impact if they don't see you doing the same thing. If they see you looking into the mirror, feeling like, ugh. If they see you shrinking, sacrificing, not being happy with your life, with your work, with how you are putting your purpose in the world, they will feel the disconnect. So this is why I'm here doing what I do. Yes, our kids are the catalyst for the change, but the change needs to start here. That's why it's a mommy tantrum training. It's not kids tantrum training. It's a mommy tantrum training. And that's why this Zen Supermom Podcast is the first parenting podcast that's not about the kids. It's all about the parents. And you deserve all the help. You deserve, because you're trying. If you're here, even like if you made it till the end of this podcast episode, that tells me how much you care. If you were there still blaming everybody and everything else, if you were there not ready to commit, not ready to admit that there might be something in you, you would have already checked out. You would have already turned me off, like, whatever, crazy lady, I'm not listening to you again. But you're still here. Not everybody gets till the end. And the fact that you did it tells me there's something that resonates in my story, in my examples. There's part of you who already knows, oh shoot, I think we are onto something. And that deserves to be recognized. You have more courage and more self-awareness than most people do. And so that's already your first win. So focus on that. Eyes on the road. Rather than letting your judge beat you up about all the things that are not going well, start celebrating yourself for all the things that you are doing well. And get the help when it's here, especially if it's free. So I hope to see you in that mommy tantrum training, either live or on the replay afterwards. And then let me know what you got out of it. This feedback really helps me prepare all these podcast episodes. It helps me think further what kind of content I can put out there so that it would help you, because that's my intention. I really wish somebody did that for me 5-6 years ago. I would have been so grateful. So that's why I'm retrospectively doing it for the younger version of me. That's that I can see in all the moms there. That's why I'm doing it. So it gives me really a pleasure, and it gives me satisfaction to hear all the feedback and comments, and it helps me keep going and keep improving and making it more easier for you to understand and get the results. Okay. So with that, I will look forward to seeing you at the training, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take very good care, Supermom, and I'm going to see you or hear you at the next episode of the Zen Supermom Podcast. Bye!